Well, this is a very very different podcast than I was thinking it was going to be for a couple of minutes there. Um, a lot of humble pie was going to be eaten about my thoughts on Richarlison. I mean, look, things have turned around pretty miraculously in several different instances there. I was getting ready to come in here and give Richarlison both barrels. I've still got plenty of complaints about him, but it doesn't feel quite the time to do it now after he's just gotten that equaliser. Then obviously I was preparing myself to go on about the fact that we always manage to get a result over Manchester United nowadays, which is mad. I couldn't have ever imagined that when I was growing up, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. You always hear me going on about with Manchester United. Now, 2-2. Really, I think it was Fletch, or who was it? Owen McCoist. One of them said, the air has come out of the Tottenham balloon here. And it feels that way a little bit, doesn't it? You're buoyant, yes! 2-1, we've done it, we've snatched it. I don't think it would have been an unfair victory, but a draw, if I'm being honest, a draw on balance is probably the right result. But still, I don't think it would have been like a travesty had we won that. And it would have been nice to have done to them what they've done to us for so much of my life. The performance today from both teams was such a classic Tottenham Manchester United performance, roles reversed. But the biggest thing from today really is that I think it's two teams, two sets of supporters that have their question marks over both of their managers, over both of the systems, over both of the setups. And I don't think that performance today has answered many questions for either of us. Are Manchester United any good? Are Spurs any good? Nobody really knows. Maybe both teams are still quite bad, Maybe both teams are okay, or maybe both teams are quite bad. There's no clearer an indication that we've met in the middle than a draw like that. The performance was pretty even, to be honest. It was, it was pretty evenly sided. But I don't really care about Manchester United. I mean, I don't care about them at all. I couldn't care less. What I care about is Tottenham Hotspur, and it's tough to do this because I'm happy with that result. I'm happy that we've not gone into an international break with a loss. I'm happy that we've not lost to Manchester United now since 2021. Beg your pardon. I think it's 2021. So it's nice to just kind of have a little hoodoo over a team like that who have classically been so much bigger and better than us and all that type of thing, right? It's nice to sort of keep that going on. It's nice for Tottenham to not lose again at home, obviously. I saw in the pre-match, find it on Patreon, patreon.com/RTRpod. One of the things I found for the pre-match is that we are on track to lose our most games at home in a calendar year for a very long time. I want to say it's like 97, 98. We haven't lost double figures at home for a really long time. And I know these things are just kind of, in some senses, an annoying little, statistical anomaly to hold up and say, this is annoying, look at the number. But also it is indicative of something, isn't it? It's indicative of a wider pattern. Quite what that wider pattern is, the lack of good players, the lack of atmosphere and all that type of stuff that plenty managers seem to like calling out. What's the result of, what is that atmosphere a result of? Rising ticket prices, blah, 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 blah. All that type of stuff, right? But we haven't lost, and that's good. I'm trying to front load this with as much positive stuff as I can because I was not really very happy with Thomas Frank today at all, really. Half-time, right, taking off Callum Moani at half-time, leaving on Richarlison is a mind-boggling decision to me. It's a mind-boggling decision. I know he's spoken about the fact that Moani can't do the full 90 minutes yet. He said that in his pre-match presser. You know, Moani isn't one for a full 90 yet. He doesn't know how much gas he's got in the tank, doesn't know how much sharpness he's got. I was staggered when he came off at half time. Ali McCoist and all that were going on. Oh, you can understand that decision. His finishing's awful. His confidence is low. Blah blah. I didn't see that at all. I didn't see that at all from the first half. I saw a player continuing to improve. A player who was toiling away, who was showing a lot of endeavour, who was showing a lot of invention, who was linking up well with Xavi Simons. You know, two players who are perhaps, look, speculatively, you could say, two players who are of a certain quality that have a level of understanding already, right? So to take off Moani and leave Richarlison on, who, you know, this is tough, man, because the goal, the equaliser, the almost winning goal was nice. You know, it was lovely. Look, would Odebear's shot have gone in or not? Don't know. No, we don't know yet, do we? Not yet. We can only speculate as to whether or not it would have gone in. Richarlison's gotten that nice little touch on it. It's gone in, and so you have to give it to him. You have to base this on the facts that are presented to you. Richarlison scored the almost winning goal. It was a lovely little touch. Well done. So it feels harsh to kind of go in on him, but I don't see enough from him. The performance for the majority of that half, I really refuse to believe that we'd be seeing less from Dane Scarlett if he was on the pitch. If anything, I think we'd be seeing more. And the point here is, I get it. People can say, oh, you're only liking the shiny new thing. He's gone on loan and he's not done very well. All that type of stuff. That's all fair. I think there are certain things I would put back to this, right? Football is about momentum. It's about emotional momentum as well. Right now, there's an overriding emotional sentiment from a large percentage of the fans to want to see Dane Scarlett on the pitch, right? I think I'm pretty sure I speak for most football fans when I say one of the best feelings in football is when a player comes through your academy and starts killing it. Like the feeling of Harry Kane doing what he did in our shirt. The fact that a player came through our academy and broke Jimmy Greaves' scoring record is fan fiction. It's pure fan fiction, you know? Whenever I was a kid and when I'd play Championship Manager, Football Manager as it's now known, and you'd look at the club and you'd look at the historical records and you'd see Jimmy Greaves' record there. I just thought that, even as a kid, I thought that is never going to be broken. In the modern era, there will never be a player for Spurs and really from anywhere that will break that record. It's inconceivable. The fact a player came through our academy and did that is phenomenal, right? We're always going to carry this because of Harry Kane, one of our own, coming through our academy, all that type of thing. We're always going to have this itch of wanting to see a young striker come through and emulate Harry Kane. As for years, all the discourse was always, are Spurs ever going to have another striker like Jimmy Greaves? You know, it's one of the sort of things my dad always used to go on about. There'll never be another player like Jimmy Greaves, and if there is, then blah, 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 blah. So we're always going to have that. There's always going to be that emotional heft behind any sort of young striker. The thing about Dane Scarlett is, yeah, he's gone to Portsmouth. He's gone to, I think, Oxford as well, and he's done all right. And look, there's always going to be those natural comparisons there. Harry Kane didn't do very well when he was on loan, blah, 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 blah. It's less relevant, really. It paints, obviously, a picture that sometimes young players are at different points in their journey, right? Young players aren't always ready to be shipped off to the bog trotter leagues. And, just because they haven't set those on fire doesn't mean they're a completely busted flush. My main sort of feeling on Dane Scarlett is that I think there's enough. When we see him play, he has played a fair few kind of cameos in cup competitions primarily. When he's come on, he's looked bright. He's looked physically like he's capable now. I think maybe a year or so ago, he had that summer that lots of young men do, really, when they go from being a boy to a man. When suddenly their shoulders fill out, they bulk up, they get a bit taller, and that's what's happened to him. We've literally seen him go from a child to a young man now in front of our very eyes. What was it? Was it Harry Enfield? Young man, was it back in the day? Anyway, there's a reference for the Gen Zs and the Gen Alphas. None of them are watching this anyway. What am I on about? Who's watching this? Who's watching this hairy old goblin in his room? Oh, I've got all my old programs behind me for when I was a little boy. Oh, how do you do, fellow kids? Pathetic. What a pathetic old man. But it happens quickly. I'm just warning you now, if you are younger and watching this and thinking that of me, mate, it was only a few years ago when I was a smug 20-something going on about Harry Hotspur or whoever else, being some old out of touch whatever. And here we are. Here we are. It catches up with you quick. Life comes at you fast. See, that's me showing I am down with the proverbial youth. Look, back on this Dane Scarlett thing, right? There's an emotional longing for a player like Dane Scarlett, a player through our academy, somebody that's potentially exciting, somebody that's a bit still of an unknown, right? The thing about Richarlison is we know what we're getting from him. We know he's got moments like today in it. It's not an gotcha because he's scored that goal today. We know Richarlison is capable of that. But what Richarlison's also been capable of today is what was the match day? 96 minutes long. So 95 minutes of being pretty abject for the majority of the performance, being a dead end for every single move. Awful touch, awful vision, awful awareness of the players around him, going to ground constantly, even when there's no real advantage for it. One of the things about Harry Kane is, and you can see him do it for Bayern Munich all the time, and we saw him do it for Spurs enough, he knows exactly when to go to ground. People call him a dive in this and that. Yeah, whatever. Like the top players do that, but he knew when to do it. Richarlison will just do it anywhere all over the pitch. You know, it's terrible. I refuse to believe that Dane Scarlett could not be out there doing something and at least give the fans, give a lot of people a bit of a lift. There's clearly a lot of clamouring from the fans for him to play. Why not just indulge that for a bit? Why not just indulge it? And if not, even if you don't want to give it Scarlett, you got Mathis Tell sat there who has scored an absolute worldie today. That touch and the finish, I know the finish took a little bit of a deflection, but still, he's caused that to happen. The touch, the turn, and the instinct to just shoot on sight is wonderful. And that's that is what I've spoken about with Tell before, is when I've always said, yeah, I know he's not perfect, but there's glimpses there. There are glimmers of that ability that he has that come out. That is that today. I think the thing about Tell is the discussion is more, is he a natural fit for that number 9 role, or is he better playing out wide and drifting inside? You know, and I think that's still the conversation to be had. Whereas with Scarlett, you would argue you could slap him up front, stick him up front and see if he can do the Solanke thing. You know, give him a chance. It's strange to see him be like looked over for a Carabao Cup game, but chucked into a Champions League match. You know, but there's plenty to talk about there. But Richarlison, look, he has scored that today. But I've said on Twitter, and my main feeling towards it is he's a player that is good enough, thus tempting enough for any manager in the world to give him minutes, because he is just about good enough. But the problem is we know exactly what we're getting from him. You're going to get 5 to 7 really good games from him every season. And then he just, loses concentration, can't keep his mind on the game. And look, the thing is, again, I do have to caveat this, and I appreciate this. I know he's publicly on record spoken about his mental health, right? We can only speculate as to whether or not this factors into his output on pitch. If I'm talking about there being perhaps a mental block there, his concentration, his, lack of consistency, maybe his off-pitch personal battles do factor into that. And that's something on a human and personal level, of course, you have to be understanding of. And of course, you have to hope and wish all the best for him as a human being. But that doesn't mean as a footballer, as when we're talking about it in a sporting sense, that we can't criticize that. We can't criticize the fact that, for whatever reason, he just isn't good enough. And that's what I base this on, what I see in front of my eyes. pretty much every single time he plays for us. And like I know, like I say, I feel harsh going in on him on this level, but like as it was with Højbjerg, I'm at the end of my tether with him now. We've seen it. We've seen the Richarlison thing is done. Just not good enough. The second point that I was deeply frustrated with Thomas Frank about. A lot of people were very annoyed. I should say, a lot of people were very annoyed about Thomas Frank and the team he put out. I'm not going to name any names, just friends and stuff I speak to on WhatsApp or people I see on Twitter and stuff like that were really livid when they saw the starting lineup. I didn't feel that so much. If I'm brutally honest, I didn't feel that so much. I was quite interested to see Palhinha play alongside Bentancur. I don't really know what else he could have done. I think Richarlison started out on the left, which he did in the Europa League final, and you know he did well that night, didn't he? So I could kind of see it. I think one of the points that was made is that it's two predominantly right-footed players starting on the left-hand side of the pitch, which is a fair criticism to have. But I'm just speaking from myself, and I wasn't particularly perturbed, if you like, about that starting 11. It didn't, it didn't wind me up. What did wind me up was obviously Kolo Muani coming off. International break. Yep, he's not fit. We've got an international break. France is not our concern. I don't even know if he's in the French squad, but it's not our concern. And Xavi Simons coming off, man. Like, I don't think he was blowing. I think he was our best player today. Our best player by quite some distance. I mean, big shout. I'm going to talk about Van der Ven in a bit, or maybe I'll talk about Van der Ven more in the players part. But dear, oh dear, man, what Ledley King incarnate, that last-ditch tackle. But still, Xavi Simons coming off, like, as we're seeing him playing this central role, as we're seeing him be more influential, surprise, surprise, settle into the pace of the Premier League a bit more, we're seeing the player that we thought we signed. And the creeping thought I had today, the intrusive thought I had when watching that was he hasn't got enough good players around him. What's making Simons like not look as good as he should is the players around him. And I know the instant rebuttal to that will be nonsense. Good players make things happen regardless. But when you're talking about a player in his position, somebody that is more of a playmaker, really, surely they rely on the output of the players around them as well. Luka Modric was a fantastic player, but he didn't score that many goals for Spurs or anything. And the players he had to feed were, I would say, probably of a better quality than Xavi Simons has here. And I make this comparison because Luka Modric is somebody that had a similar kind of trajectory, if you like, to Simons. He came in, a lot of people spoke about him not really being of a required quality, not really, having the right stature, not really coming to grips with the pace of the Premier League. He played out on the left, he played in the middle, sort of switched between the two every now and again, until suddenly he looked settled in the middle. And then lo and behold, he had loads of really good players around him to feed and become an important part of a team and took it onto another level. That's the effect that Luka Modric had. Right now, it feels like Xavi Simons is being added into a team where he has gone on to now be one of the best players in it. And a lot of the players around him aren't of the required standard to really read what it is that he's doing. And I say this predominantly from an attacking perspective, because I think we do have good players in our team, and I don't want to neg our team, because Romero is one of the best defenders in world football. Mickey van der Ven seems to be well on his way to becoming one of the best defenders in world football. Pedro Porro's not perfect, but he's decent, isn't he? Pape Sarr, I think, you know how much I go on about Pape Sarr. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful player. Palhinha, we'll get onto that one, but I still think is a talented enough player. But then when you think about it, when he's trying to make when when he's trying to link up with Richarlison, when he's trying to link up with Brennan Johnson, you know, I just sort of feel for him a bit. And to be fair, Brennan Johnson did all right in moments. You know, a whisker offside for the goal that didn't stand, that he scored, but lovely finish from him. He linked up fairly well with, I think it was Siemens, wasn't it, that played the ball through to him at that moment. Was it Siemens? Now I'm starting to doubt myself whether it was. I'm pretty sure it was. So, you know, I don't know, but I think the decision to take him off today from Frank was, look, the response from the crowd in the ground tells you all you need to know. And it could, you know, that type of thing. We've seen it happen with Nuno and, you know, Nuno's Moura moment, right? Taking off one of your sort of most dangerous looking players, one of the players that's, you know, facing up a lot of Manchester United's players, running at them, going at them, trying to make things happen, trying to thread balls through, trying to bring players into the match. You know, it just is baffling, and it makes me sometimes wonder if he's watching the same thing that everyone else is. And I know a manager is going to be processing this on a different level and blah, 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 all that type of stuff. And people will say, what do fans know? But fans have been saying from, you know, 3 or 4 games into the season now, Palhinha and Bentancur simply does not work. It doesn't work to start games, at least. And lo and behold, I thought we actually started today's game all right when we didn't start with those two. FC Copenhagen, again, it challenged us to play more probing, more one-touch, expansive stuff without having the stodge of those two in the centre of the park. So I know the fallback will always be, well, you know, he's not quite sharp enough yet. We want to save him. It's an international break again. Like the performance of the Dutch national team is of no consequence to Spurs fans, maybe Dutch Spurs fans, but, you know, club before country at all times. It's of no consequence to us. Keep him on. He wants to stay on the pitch. He's improving. Give him more of those minutes. Give him more of those minutes in a high-pressure game like that. Of course, I understand, though, the point here is after Frank made all these subs, we went on and scored 2 goals. So what do we know? What do you know? What do you know, Mr. Hairy Podcast Man? And that's fine. That's fair enough, isn't it? But look, a real mixed bag today. Real mixed bag, obviously. I'm not angry about it. I'm not disappointed even, really. I mean, well, I am. Of course, let me phrase this. If I was offered like a 2-2 draw before the game, I probably would have taken it, truth be told. You know, I'm one of those fans with that weak mentality that you hear about. But truth be told, you know, I probably would have taken that. The way the game played out, obviously, it's quite disappointing to go from the high of getting a 91st, 92nd minute winner to it not being that. Mathis de Ligt, though, cupping his ears and shushing the crowd. Mate, we've done you in the Champions League semi-final, the biggest game of your career, which you dropped an absolute stinker in. And we've done you in the Europa League final. Scoring an equaliser in a scabby Premier League game between 2 teams that are awful ain't the one, mate. Like, you don't, you know, I don't think, what is it? I don't think you've got the facilities for that, boss man. Like, it's just shushing us and all that type of, mate, come on. Just be happy that you got the equaliser, celebrate, but don't get all like that about it. You're not that guy. Manchester United are not that team anymore, lads. And I saw, you know, obviously their fans are going to give it all that sort of thing, but it does always make me think. It does make me think the mentality of them is just off a cliff nowadays. A club like that used to routinely wipe the floor with Spurs is now, do you know what I mean, trying to mug us off because they've gotten a last-minute equaliser against us. Yeah, you know, the fact that they went 1-0 up and they couldn't manage to hold on to it. They've conceded 2 goals. away at a team that has been in awful form at home. Things like that should be more food for thought for Man United fans and Manchester United as a football club than Mathis de Ligt thinking he can run around cupping his ears and shushing fans. But look, I get it. It's a heat of the moment thing and all that type of stuff. But, it's just, like I say, you're not that guy. Man United are not that team. Some of the comments here. Sasha says, lovely to see the young lads, Tell and Odeber, looking so bright. Yep, definitely agree. What a finish from Mathis Tell. Lovely. And I wonder if in a way now there's a bit less pressure on him in some respects. It felt like it was coming to a bit of a head, didn't it? Look at Mathis Tell. Look at the form he's in. Is he going to start? Is he not? Is he going to start? Is he not? Now people aren't really talking about it. Now he's kind of like blended into the background a little bit more. Mathis Tell is there. Jury's out on him. Let's see how much time he gets playing in a Spurs shirt. That's kind of, that's probably quite a nice place for him to be at and to be in. So yeah, let him keep kind of doing what he's doing today, operating under the radar a little bit. Here's an interesting one. So Deuces Wild said, signing Palhinha permanently would be a statement of mid-table intent. We instantly transformed in possession when he went off. It's interesting, isn't it? I definitely think he's a better player than Højbjerg, but I am starting to see, I've seen the comparisons made. Let's put it that way. I don't think he hides. Højbjerg, the thing about Højbjerg for me is, and I'm going to wind myself up about it again talking, Højbjerg used to hide. Højbjerg used to hide all the time. And the pointing and the shouting at other players and all that type of stuff. He just wound me up. I think Palhinha is a much better player than him. And I think probably for some games, we need a player like Palhinha because, people scored against us at will. I know we want to have more kind of intent in possession and that type of thing. But I personally don't think, at least for the start of the game, Palhinha was really an obstruction to Spurs being able to play actually some quite nice football at times, knock it about fairly expansively. I think most teams need a player like Palhinha. And if we can't scout and find a player that can do, because it's undeniable, right? Palhinha does have certain qualities that we lack in this team. He does. That's the point, right? And if we can find a player that has those qualities, that similar kind of presence in midfield, that ability to break up opposition attacks, the ability to be a screen for the defence, who can also knock the ball about, we're thinking Rodri, a Caicedo, those type of players, right? Great. Let's spend the money on that type of player. If we know of one, if the scouts know of one, great, let's do that. But if we don't, if we can pick up Palhinha for 20 something mil, I'm still not against it. I still think every team needs a player like that. Maybe it's more just about the way in which we use him, maybe more about the way in which we utilize him. But I'm not really with you on that one, Deuces. I don't see it as like as big as a sign of mid-table intent. I think we've really, really lacked a player with a lot of his qualities. I think that with a lot of these things, the truth is always somewhere in the middle. And like I say, great. If we can find a Caicedo or a Rodri, fantastic. But every other club, pretty much, other than Chelsea or Manchester City, are looking for a player like that, right? So, Ben Mathias says, Vicario a bit slow for the last goal for me. Annoying to chuck that away. I thought we were better. Everyone else seems to think otherwise. I think McCoist was saying the keeper could have done better from the corner. I don't miss an opportunity to have a dig at Julian Vicario. Today with that one, I think I'll probably just extend a bit of understanding that, maybe, just maybe, it was just a good header. Perhaps the defending could have been better. Defending should have been way better. It was a calamity of errors for that first Manchester United goal. Mickey van der Ven was trying to have a go at Pat Matasar about it, but van der Ven himself didn't exactly shower himself in glory in that moment. Spence was pretty slack. Sarr's ball was slack as well. just a sort of calamity of errors that led to their first goal. And the second goal, yeah, but could we have covered him better? Probably we should have done. They had one less player than us on the pitch. How is somebody not picking up a great, big, massive, towering centre-back in the dying minutes of a game? So, fine, but I don't know. I don't know if I'll chuck Vicario under the bus for that one. I'm not saying there's no 2 seconds. I'm not saying there's no way, shape or form he couldn't have done better there, but is what it is. Oh yeah, Matty C says as well, I cannot fathom that with an extra man we let their 6'4" centre-back have a free header from 4 yards out. Schoolboy stuff. Yeah, on the nose. Darren says, shocking game. It wasn't great. It was obviously quite exciting in certain respects. Yeah, getting a last-minute winner, all that type of stuff, seeing the momentum shift. But I know what you mean. Ryan Trail says, annoying result, but probably fair. Rubbish first half. Pretty good when Odegaard came on. He needs to be starting out left from now on. I agree. I think there's... I think Odegaard is showing his... I think he's been showing his worth quite a lot of late. So, good player. Jack Underhill says, more annoyed at how boring we were rather than the late concession. I don't see what the tactic to try and score is. Also, Brennan and Richie aren't pro footballers and I will be gaslit no more. I mean, they might be pro footballers, but as I said to Nathan when he was nitpicking about my annoyance that Callum Moani had been taken off, Richarlison to me just looks like, a Burnley poo house, doesn't he? That's what he looks like. He looks like the sort of player that you would have at a club like back in the day, Bolton Wanderers, that you could just lump the ball up forwards to, and every now and again he'd score a goal like he does, but just is not very good. Remember when Liverpool... this to me is almost like, I think he's better than Ricky Lambert, but still, Ricky Lambert, who was sort of doing bits, I can't even remember, was it Southampton he played for, I think? But he was doing bits at a team further down in the league where there was less pressure on him. And when I say doing bits, he was just a lump. They could lump the ball up to him, and every now and again he could get on the end of something and do quite well. And then so Liverpool thought, go on, let's have a go. Let's give him an opportunity. You slap him in the team and then you're like, oh, right. Yeah, no, he's not good enough. I just feel like that's what Richarlison is a bit. And I know this is a bit Sam Allardyce, but I can't help but think the fact he is Brazil's number 9. I mean, look, why is he Brazil's number 9? One might ask. Fair question, fair rebuttal. But I think the fact he is, Brazil's number 9 probably gives him a level of gloss that isn't afforded to certain other players who are similar. Is Richarlison miles better than Chris Wood? Answer me that. Is he miles better than a player like that? Because that's what I think he is. I think he's that type of player. I've gone on enough about Richarlison. I'm not going to do it anymore. Bin Guy says Frank is horrible, bang average, mid-table manager. Is this what you really want from Spurs? Jesus. We'll see, won't we? Wilson T says, why is Frank more worried about their attackers than putting our best ones on? There was a bit of a mask slipping moment in his pre-match presser when he was going on and on about Manchester United's attack and saying how good it was. The players they've added are brilliant, and Buemo's a great player. They've added other great players, and it's up to him to focus on how to stop them from attacking. And then he suddenly tacked on to the end of it. Oh, and of course, we have to create problems for them as well going forwards. And you're like, mate, the mask has slipped there. The mask has slipped there, Tommy Frank. Like, it's gone a little bit there. You're not beating the allegations right now, lad. And it's tough, isn't it? It's interesting. Look, I'm still... He's got enough. There's enough there for me to still like Tommy Frank and not be like, get rid of him. And I also think he needs more time. I don't think we can get into this constant cycle of binning off managers all the time. But I would definitely say, I've got him on out watch. That's what I will say, right? So we'll see. Chris Tucker says the home system does not work with Polina. He operates as a centre-back when in possession. Game changed with the subs. Tellen Odeber's redemption. Jack Underhill says, I also swear whenever Richarlison cries, celebrates, takes his top off for a combination of three, something bad instantly happens. Yeah. Stephen King says, Jack, I just messaged my mum, reason I support Spurs in brackets, saying how happy I was and that Spurs had made my weekend. Balls. Anyway, thanks for streaming. Take some of the pain away. That's all right, Stephen. Thank you for being here as ever, mate. I appreciate it. And it is, isn't it? It's the air out the balloon. That's what what's his name? Fletcher said, wasn't it? And it's just kind of how it feels. I was really looking, you know what the thing is? I was sat there like a pig in excrement on the sofa, buoyantly like, yes. You know, I'm gonna jump on here. I'm gonna have one of the good ones here. A good pod. This could be a turning point. Is this Frank's Aston Villa moment? Is this the springboard that we used pre-international break? We fought back against Manchester United. We've got all 3 points on the board. We've stopped the rot at home. We've done all that, and then now I'm just like, now I'm going to have to focus more on the negative things I thought about this game, the team selection, the Richarlison thing, all that type of stuff, right? So it does pop the balloon, but at the same time, there are, you know, I don't think it's clutching at straws to just say there are certain things about this match still that I am pretty happy about, you know? Ricochet Pig says, horrible end to the game. Yep. David Ramirez, United down to 10 men and we kick the ball long and let them attack. Just one of many frustrating things today. Ryan Trail also says he disagrees on Mawani. He thought he was pony and deserved to be hooked. Interesting. Honestly, I really didn't feel that way, mate. If you see this in time, I'd be quite interested to know more of why you felt that. The thing about Mawani is, you know, as I said, as like Phil said to me, he seems to be quietly effective despite not really actually doing much at certain points. And I get it. I think some of the runs he makes are smart. I think the positions he gets into are smart. It shows the intellect of an attacker who is of a certain quality. And although not everything is working for him, I think his touch is pretty decent, actually. And I think he tries to play sort of ambitious passes, nice one-touch stuff here and there. And it doesn't always come off, but I think that's the rustiness that Frank's talking about. But I would say is the underlying player there, I feel anyway, is of a quality that is considerably higher than Richarlison. And so I would like to see him just stay on the pitch. And that's kind of how I feel, mate. JBSP 201X says, awful. How Richarlison lasted the whole game blows my mind. He can't play ahead of anyone. David T says, why can't we just buy a second proper left back instead of shunting Spence out there constantly? Offensively, he looks poor. I think that, like, I would like, the thing is, it seems to be whenever Spence has had his games on the right-hand side, most people revert back to saying he's better on the left-hand side. So I don't know if this is a kind of, what is it, like the absence makes the heart grow fonder type thing, where there's a sudden clamoring for him to play right back again. I think it makes sense because he is right-footed. Porro literally can't start every single game. And yeah, ultimately we do need another left back. We need more defensive cover. I think we all know this, right? We need more defensive cover. We need more fullback. All football now, wing backs, fullbacks, whatever you want to call them, they are such an integral part of football. Like, and they have been now for at least a decade. we need more options, don't we? We need more options. I'm surprised we haven't had any young fullbacks come through our academy for quite some time, have we? Danny Rose is signed from Leeds' academy, but we did still sign him at a very young age. So that's, unless there's a glaring omission there, that's the last sort of young winger we've had come through. And even then, he played more as an advanced player at academy level and in his first few starts for Spurs. So I don't know. You'll see. Mud FC says cursed. And Ricochet Pig also says, Tell's goal reminded me of Defoe, and Odegaard looked really good. That was quite Defoe-esque, wasn't it, the Tell goal? Just a lovely turn. Lovely, just not in his own head, just instinctive. This is what I do. Get the ball, turn the man, bang, top corner. Lovely, lovely stuff. Draw was probably a fair result, but to have conceded so late is disgusting. Yeah, it is annoying. HS also says, oh, young man. Was it Harry Enfield? I think it was Harry Enfield, wasn't it? Harry Enfield and Chums. Ben says, Odegaard and Udogie providing proper width and attack. Say what you will, but we need youngsters who can actually dribble. Kulusevski can't come back soon enough. Here, my friend. I cannot wait for him to be back. And who was it? I can't remember if it was Ricky who on the pod the other day who said, like we've almost all sort of forgotten that Kulusevski plays for Spurs. He's going to be an option for us soon because he's a lovely player, isn't he? And I will be really, really. I mean, to me, it's suddenly transformative. If you've got a team with Xavi Simons, Kulusevski, and Kudus all bombing at an opposition team, things are very different. Especially if you've got Big Dom Solanke at the top, or Randall Colomwani playing well, or Dane Scarlett on his Harry Kane tangent. But we'll see, won't we? Day says, I'd rather play Dane instead of Brennan Johnson. He lost to Ligt at the end and he plays football like he's never played before. Yeah. Kugo says, United were poor. We could have smashed them, but Frank has no idea how to keep possession. Gaze Tronic says, it's getting more difficult to ignore the Frank out voices in my head. I think do you know what I was saying to you in terms of like, I'm not Frank out, but at the same time, I'm not looking at people who are Frank out and thinking, that's ridiculous. I think if I'm brutally honest, I think I look at Frank, like people are going hard Frank out now. I sort of feel like, give it a bit more time. I think is just a bit early to be doing this, to be shouting Frank out from the rooftops, but I'm not going to stop you from shouting it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's kind of sort of where I'm at. Because I can see like people's issues with him. I can see why he frustrates people, blah, blah, blah. HS says, would I take £9 for Richarlison this chat? Mate, I'd let him go for free, honestly. But if we can get a big, Saudi payday or something for him, do it, Welcome in Pieces says, hello, mate. Bit gutting to lose 2 points right at the end, but an important lesson to learn that it's not over until the whistle blows. I think Solanke coming back when fit will be huge for us, and I think Xavi will benefit from it too. Ones and twos and running past Solanke. We haven't had a striker who can really hold the ball all season. That, welcome in Pieces, that is a very good point. You've basically succinctly made a lot of the points I've been making, well, succinctly, quite that, much better. But yeah, I agree, mate. The Paulinho 20 mil comparison I think you're looking for is him becoming your Wataru Endo. I'm a Liverpool fan who's rubbernecking, so I suppose I would say that. If you can, like, give me some more context on that. I guess I'm assuming the point is that just because a decent player is available for a not too bad amount of money doesn't always mean it's the best deal to be had. I'm guessing that's what you're saying. If you could give me more clarity on that, that would be grand. Michael Smith says there are defensive mistakes that led to a free header at the back post, but Vicario was in goal for the save. If he's on the line, he should be parrying it out. Pesky B2 says Udogie and Odegaard need to be starters on the left. Looked good linking up in the last 15. Yeah. Robert says, I wanted to see Spence and Udogie at fullback. I thought we looked best when they were on, just not enough time together. Tom McCarthy said, I had the winner in Fergie time text ready to launch to my mates' WhatsApp group. However, we were dreadful. A win would have papered over the cracks. Tell has to start ahead of Richie. He offers something. KD63.7 says, gutted, but it's such early days. All the injuries have an impact. Got to give them more time. And yeah, and I think it's about time to do the players, don't you? I think let's do the players because I've just realised I've been going on for quite some time. So, as I always say at this point, if you are somebody that has an objection to adverts for podcasts, I mean, if you listen to podcasts, you'll know that basically all podcasts have adverts in now. But if you're somebody that doesn't like podcasts and you think mine should be an exception to the rule, you can become a supporter on Patreon, patreon.com/RTRpod, where you'll get every single episode of Rule the Roost completely ad-free. If you sign up for the Inner Sanctum tier, you'll also get extra podcasts. So please consider it. Now time for some adverts. And it's the players. Guillermo Vicario. I thought was all right today. You know how much I like to dig him out, but the comments within this... Sorry, my throat was quite hoarse. The comments within this podcast have maybe meant I need to give my head a wobble. Maybe he could have done better for that equalising goal. Could he have done better for the first goal? I don't know. Probably harsh again. I'm not so sure. But yeah, I thought fine. An okay performance. Let's put it that way. Jed Spence at left back. I'm going to say it. I think Jed's been a bit whiffy lately. We can all speculate like what the reasons as to that are. Is he being overplayed? Is he kind of, is he enjoying the smell of his own farts too much? Blah, blah, blah. Who knows, right? All I will say is that the end product has not been as good as we perhaps got familiar with from him. Maybe there's also a point to be had that seeing Destiny Udogie come back in has maybe given us that kind of sharp focus as to what it's like to have a player of Udogie's quality, a player who is naturally left-footed as well, playing on the left. Because it is worth bearing in mind that Spence, I would assume, came in to replace Ben Davis a lot of the time. So when you're going from Ben Davis playing at left back, and I love Ben Davis, you know that, but I still think he's more of a left-sided centre-back nowadays. But when you're going from Ben Davis playing left-back to Jed Spence, who is a lot more dynamic, who will give you a lot more in that type of position than a player like Ben Davis will, you're naturally going to think, yeah, awesome. But then, like I say, seeing that comparison with Udogie, maybe that kind of gives you pause. Maybe that gives one pause for thought, right? Mickey van der Ven. Again, I said I was on Fighting Cock this week, and I said that for as brilliant, because I was asked if I would take him over Pete Jan Vertonghen, and I said that I wouldn't. Mickey van der Ven is obviously a wonderful athlete. Physically, he is sublime. But I was saying that right now, I think he needs to improve the bread and butter side of his football a bit more. Just do the basic things within his role a bit better. And today, for the most part, I thought he was not great. I think he was not great for the first goal. And I think, again, he wasn't particularly brilliant. However, in the dying sort of moments of the game, that track back and that tackle was King-esque. That was Ledley King against Chelsea-esque. That was phenomenal. Just purely phenomenal athleticism, technical ability, awareness, all of it. So I'm going to stop splitting hairs over Mickey van der Ven, and I'm going to see it that he is a young centre-back. He is going to continue to improve. And if he's improving from this point, he is one hell of a player. And he is going to be miraculous. So get him signed, like get him tied down to a big new contract. Let's build the team around him and Romero. Lovely. Christian Romero, I thought was brilliant today. I do think he was brilliant today. I really am. I'm a lot more appreciative of him this season, but I do also think that he has stepped up into the role of captain and is putting on a more consistent and, you know, higher quality level of performance for Tottenham. So I think it's a bit of both, but, you know, it's an absolute asset. He is our captain. It's great that we've got him for so long. He's, you know, there's a case to be made that he could start for any team in world football, really, even Arsenal. Pedro Porro, yeah, all right today. A couple of really dangerous whipped crosses. Okay, I thought it wasn't you know, one of his best performances, but wasn't terrible either. Papsar, I've had Soul Sniper Gaming saying to me, Sarr was very poor. I don't know. I don't know if he's very poor. I think what I will say is I think he started the game very brightly. I really liked his start to the game. Again, I think he set the tempo. I think he didn't hide. I think he allowed Xavi Simons to do a lot of what he was doing. I think they exchanged passes a few times. I think Sarr supplying the ball to Xavi Simons, being that supply line from the back end, is very important, especially when he's playing alongside Polinia, who we know, isn't the biggest fan of a forward pass. Could he have been better? Yeah, potentially, but I still think it was a good performance. I think he was tidy today, and I think he does all the things I want from Pat Matasar: the tracking back, the end-to-end stuff, the cool, decent kind of recycling of possession. Really well. I think he's a great player. Sorry. Polinia, I thought was decent. Like I say, I've sort of spoken about him today quite a bit. I thought he had a good performance today, if I'm brutally honest with you. I'm not really buying the whole we radically shifted up when he came on, because I do think we started the game quite well. I just think, I think there's a confluence of factors there. But for me, it's him or Bentancur. I don't want to see both of them playing together. Richarlison, I've spoken about him at length today. I'm not going to do that anymore. Xavi Simons, great. I thought really good. Really sad for him that he got taken off. A great performance, and I want to see more of this from him. Play him centrally, give him more responsibility, get the ball to him, and let's see what he can do. And let's see what he can do when he's got Kudus, Kulusevski, Solanke, or whoever playing around him. When he's got James Maddison, dare I say, playing around him as well. There are levels that we can go to, and it can be exciting. It will be better than this. Brennan Johnson, it was a decent finish despite the fact it was offside. Other than that, was he playing? I don't know. René Colomuani, like I say as well, I've spoken about him a bit. I thought he was decent today, but maybe it's not an opinion that's shared too widely. But I thought he was okay, and I'm seeing glimmers of a good player there. Wilson Odobert, like with each performance, I feel more and more comfortable in my assertion that the lad needs time, that there's a decent player in there. And I really feel that. I really feel that Wilson Odobert is an exciting and talented footballer. And I would like to see him start more often now, really. I think really we need to see him start more often, given the lack of kind of naturally left-sided player and players who have a sort of similar skill set to him out there. Yeah. Destiny Doggy, when he came on, good. He's a great player, isn't he? Wonderful player. Rodrigo Bentancur, yeah, decent when he came on. I'm not his biggest fan, but yeah, he was good. Mathis Tell, wonderful goal. Wonderful goal. Absolutely, it took me by surprise, but it was instinctive. It was in the moment. It was everything that you want to see from this young player that has had a lot of hype. We were excited when we signed him. We need to sort of claw that energy back. This is a young striker we signed from Bayern Munich. This is an exciting sort of, one of the big prospects in European football. One of the French sort of under 21 setups, more exciting, talented players. Less pressure on him. And, there needs to be a certain level of pressure at this level of football, but still a bit less pressure on him as an individual. Give him a bit more time to breathe. Give him better opportunities, high quality opportunities, and let's see what he can do. But there's definitely a player in there. There is definitely a player in there. And I'm not saying he's going to go on to have a wonderful Tottenham career and this and that, but all I'm saying is I'm not buying the idea that he's terrible, that he's useless, that he's a waste of money. If he stays focused, if he stays sort of on it and he wants to be a success here, I feel he could do that because I feel he does have loads of ability. It was a lovely turn and finish today. Really, really nice. Really, really good. Kevin Danso came on for a couple of minutes, didn't he? I think he got like a yellow card, did he? In that time, but fine. I like Danso. I think he's a good player. I feel, it's nice having a player like him that we've got in reserve that we can call upon that is good, is of a certain quality. We need more of that. It's going to be, it's going to be interesting to see how Dragusin does in Thomas Frank's system and all that type of stuff. But still, the times we did see Dragusin come in before he got injured, it was always a bit whiffy, wasn't it? But with old Big Dance, it's good to see. It's good to see a player come on who is of a certain quality, right? I've said that already. I've made my point. You've made your point. You blithering imbecile. Stop going on. You've sat here for 56 minutes now, going on, blah, 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 offering absolutely nothing. No tactical nuance, no tactical intellect, no real insight into the match past what anyone else has seen. Just your blithering moronic takes, like some old barfly sat there in the corner, blah, blah, blah. In my day, Harry Kane, blah, 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 blah. Shut up. Just shut up. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. I actually do. I'm not saying that sarcastically. That sounded really sarcastic. I wasn't. I was saying it more like I appreciate it, despite the fact I'm having a go at myself there and going on about how terrible my podcasting is. Did a really good pod this week. Really enjoyable pod with both Cal from Below the Belt and the Fighting Cock so that was Monday's pod, Thursday's pod with the one and only Mr. Ricky Sachs, who was a lovely bloke. I put out a call for some questions from him, and a lot of you asked some very nasty questions. Slap on the wrist for you. He's a lovely fella, Ricky Sachs. So I think he's been heavily mischaracterized by some of you. So yeah, nice chat. Really good pod, really enjoyable pod. So go back and listen to those if you want to. Like I say, you can support the show and listen to other pods. There's evergreen pods on there. Obviously, there's a preview before every game, but there's also evergreen pods on the Patreon, patreon.com/RTR pod. As I say every single week, if you're watching this on YouTube, please just give it a like. Just literally click a little thumbs up and that's good. It'll get suggested to more people and then more people can watch it and be into this lovely bosom of Tottenham Hotspur, whatever it is, head wobbles. If you are listening to this on Spotify, drop it 5 stars. 5 stars, non-optional. 5 stars, please. I have less ratings than I do subscribers. So if you are subscribed to the pod on Spotify, no excuses. Absolutely no excuses. Do it. Please. Also, Apple Podcasts. Ratings, reviews, much appreciated. I think that's it. We do have an international break. Boo hiss. I'm going to try, maybe, I'll try and get inventive. I'll try and think of something that I can do. But, is what it is, isn't it? The international break. So maybe I should just spend some time with my family. How about that? Maybe. Much love. Come on, you Spurs. Disappointing day today, obviously, in the end. Could have been a lot better, but look, we didn't lose. You're still thinking about the bad news, aren't you? But up the Spurs. Come on, you Spurs. Please be good.